Yay. And we're live.
Are we?
Woohoo!
Okay.
Probably, yeah. We should be.
Hopefully.
So, what's happening? Um, this is iBookBinding's live. And today, again, we have Friedrich Sommerfeld as our expert, researcher.
Expert, yeah. I just looked the show and looked really close, paid attention, maybe did some reading.
Okay.
That's certainly more than I did. So you'll be the expert. No.
You'll
Okay.
be fine, I guess.
So the main topic for today's discussion is the bookish objects of the House of the Dragon series. We did uh, an analysis of the Game of Thrones a while ago. I don't know, several years ago, but it was in the post form, not on YouTube. Well, there are some photos there, but anyway. And a couple of weeks, no, several weeks ago, we did the same thing for the Rings of Power series. And today we will also finalize the thing because, well, there are some bookish objects left in the series that we didn't discuss. Some of the objects appeared again, and well, some of them are quite nice looking. But anyway, in general, I'm more impressed by the work of the props department of the House of the Dragon series. What about you, Friedrich?
The same goes for me. I mean, when I first watched the show, I missed a couple of things, which led me to believe that um, if you compare this show to Rings of Power, I first thought like, okay, there's less
Mm-hmm.
in House of the Dragon, but then I rewatched it and yeah, I saw some stuff which was really beautiful and well, basically vast, but we'll get to that where that comes in. Um, yeah, do you want to start? Because
First, I wanted to ask you a
yeah,
general question.
yeah.
In your opinion,
Hmm?
is it consistent in terms of periods? Because when I look at it, it seems to me like books and libraries say come from different aesthetic epochs. Because library looks more like it is a Renaissance library or even later,
Hmm.
while books look high medieval, so 20th, 13th century. Or is it just my impression?
Well, I mean, you might be right there that there might be something like inconsistencies. I mean, if you look at the history of the world of basically Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon, there might be differences to our history. So I'm not too familiar with the history present in this world. So styles don't necessarily have to follow in the order that they appeared here. And also, if you have a certain background for a book, like let's say it's a more modern history book in the show, it can have a different style than, for example, a library that was collected over a great span of time. And maybe we'll see that the bindings are rather samey, I would say. They have the same style. So eventually, you could argue that they have been rebound at a certain point in batches, basically, so that you have more of a same style because it was done by like one or a couple of bookbinders.
Okay.
I also think that I think we discussed that at some moment in the previous streams or podcasts. I'm not sure. Is there printing technology in the world of the Game of Thrones? I'm not so sure.
I mean, from what we can see, it doesn't really look like it. I
Yeah,
think
almost all the books
most
that
what we see,
are shown up close are manuscripts, and I don't think there are any printed pamphlets or leaflets or anything like that as well. So it seems that this technology doesn't exist. From the point of view of libraries, I probably agree with Pavel because one of the we will discuss a library there, and it definitely looks a piece of from a later era compared to some of the manuscripts with corner protection and all these metal decoration elements and claps and all that stuff. From That's one thing, but the other thing is that now we are in the series something like a couple of 100 years earlier than the period of the Game of Thrones series, and there we have, for example, the library of the Castle Black, and where the Night Watch resides. And this library looks very medieval, with chains and bindings standing forage to the front, not the spine to the front, and so on. So it's this mix of eras and technologies, and obviously it's made for to please the viewer because you want the things to look spectacular. But so I guess we can forgive them for that. Before we dive in, I wanted to say a couple of technical things, maybe not technical, because this weekend it's bookbinding fair in Leiden, book craft fair in Leiden in the Netherlands, and I invite everybody to join and to come over to Leiden either on Saturday or on Sunday, and iBookBinding will be there with our tools. I bring a lot of tools, many more tools compared to average year. So yeah, come over and at least say hi. There will be a lot of interesting sellers and participants there on the fair. A bit fewer compared to the average year because, well, we discussed that bookbinding guilds and printers guilds or association of bookbinders and association of printers have split out this year. The printing fair was 2 weeks ago, and now it's bookbinding fair, so there will be fewer participants because of that. But still, there will be a lot of fine and nice people, a lot of interesting books and bookish objects and materials and all that stuff. So please come over and join us. And yeah, our stand will be right from the entrance, second stand to the right, next to the Stichting Handboekbinden, the association of bookbinders stand. So yeah, right in the beginning, across of Ben Elbel with Elbel Libro and bookbinding out of the box. So I guess I should share some images so that we can discuss them. And where is it?
So the period we're talking compared to the earliest series, it's a prequel, right?
yeah, yeah.
This is what, like 200 to 300 years
I think
before the main
200
events.
years before.
Mm-hmm. And do books actually play important role in the series?
I think not really. So they are like they're more there story-wise to give a perspective on a certain character. Like, for example, just like make them out to be well read or so, to spend their time reading. And so books usually don't serve a great purpose in the narration of the story, except for like maybe this small scroll in the beginning, which is like the start of the story. But other than that, I mean, it's like back in like Game of Thrones, where you had like these small parchment or paper strips with messages. So if those get like sent out, word spreads, and this brings a new plot point into movement. That's more like what's happened here in this
But
show.
it is definitely a literate society. So
Yes.
information spreads not through the word of mouth, but through written media.
I mean, you have to look at it from the perspective that these are basically all characters are nobles that play an important role in the show up until this point. So they are well read. They can read and they use messages and also like some like in this world there's this language High Valyrian, which is also like basically a type of Latin to this world. Like we had Latin in the Middle Ages, and they have High Valyrian. So it is basically necessary to be able to read and speak this language, just for representative purposes.
We lost the image.
Yeah. Zoom just crashed on my other PC, so
Mm.
this happens.
So could you talk about this scroll? What do you think the language is? What the font is?
I'll return the image to the screen in a moment.
Um, so the actual language written on the scroll is English. So basically, I guess in this case, a stand-in for the maybe common language is spoken in Westeros at the time. The writing style is a basically black letter script. Um, of course, it has its own details and it differs a little bit from maybe some historical styles, but overall it's, well, if we look at the history of black letter scripts, this one is pretty closely resembling the, I would say, German style of Fraktur, which is
Especially the T. T, I think, is
the
the
T,
giveaway.
the uppercase K, also the what's it called? Y? X, yeah, Y. In Targaryen. So um third row, last word, third,
Third from the right, yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So like the last word in the third row, the third to last letter, or how to say it, is basically, it's like a small R, but the bow is extended to reach under the letter, and that's a German style or a Fraktur style Y. So there are some details that closely link this style to a German style of writing.
And to me, Fraktur is something like 15th century. So basically,
Yeah,
the printing era, not on or just a bit earlier than that, right?
around the same time.
Yeah.
So if we don't have like printing technology in this world, let's say it's ahistorical, but this is a fantasy world, so you have some liberties in using different styles, I guess. And did it crash again?
Yeah, I'm having some
Oh no.
issues.
And what about this form of scroll put inside a tube where you can read it like that? Is that historical for medieval times?
Gotta be honest, I didn't read up on that. Because I was more busy looking for things, and so some stuff I didn't pay too much attention to. And I mean, just like I said last time in the Rings of Power show, it's at times quite hard to really find information on scrolls. It's like it's not. I mean, there is probably some stuff out there, but it's still, I mean, bookbinding is a niche topic, and within that, scrolls are a niche topic. So
And also the survival rate in Western
yeah,
Europe
yeah.
is astonishingly low. They seem to have been pretty widespread, but we for most of the genres we have like a dozen examples. Say actor roles were mostly written on scrolls, it seems, but we only have like 6 of those.
Mm,
And certainly letters, personal letters, epistles, those don't survive at all in scroll form, even though they are mentioned in historical documents all the time. Stepa, we can't see any
Yeah, I
images.
know.
Yeah, okay.
we just want to say we tested it beforehand and it worked, but
Yeah.
now
It just Zoom keeps crashing on one of my computers, and I can do nothing about it. Know what's happening.
Friedrich, maybe you have these images.
Yeah, let's try it the last time.
Let's try again. Yeah.
Hopefully it will work.
all right.
At least it's showing something,
Yeah.
and it's showing the wrong folder once again. I don't know why this is happening. Yeah, give me another moment and I'll try to fix it.
Okay, so we just managed to see a piece of map. I don't know if what do you think about that? What is the material on that one?
Leather. Yeah, they are pretty consistent. I think they're. What's happening?
I'm trying to pull up the pictures for myself, but they're like really small on my screen, so I can't see any details.
Yeah.
Technical issues. Well,
talk a bit about alphabets. Apart from English, do we get only one alphabet, one font for English? Do we get several fonts for High Valyrian? What's the situation there?
so on the map that we just saw for a brief second there, we get in fact, just let me take my phone real quick, so that I can see the map as well. Oh, this Rings of Power, too much. So yeah, we get a couple of brief looks at different writing styles. For example, on this map, the writing style I would say resembles more like the I don't know how to pronounce it in English, the Unisul style, which is like was a writing style that was used for example, capital letters. It's more, I think I would say simpler than the Fraktur writing style, because the Fraktur writing style has a lot of embellishments, decoration, and swashes, and no.
Okay.
Um,
Finally, it works.
the image,
At least for now.
the image before that,
Yeah.
because then we can see
Yeah.
the writing.
Yeah.
So here you can see, first things first, it's on the left-hand side, the south of Westeros, and on the right-hand side, Yes, I have problems with that. Right-hand side, a small tip of the continent Essos, which are written as the disputed lands. And in between that, which are at this point in the show an important location, the stepstones, which are disputed, fought over. And yeah, in this writing style, it's different from the first one we saw. It's a more simple style, and I would say also present in a little bit different form in Gaelic writing, which was also used, for example, or as an inspiration used by Tolkien in his designs for his writing systems. And also like just like using English and then writing it in a more Gaelic style. So yeah, so we have different styles of writing present in this show. You also could say like, okay, maybe if these appear in the same culture, then there might be like some, again, some issues with like why are there different styles in use, but for the same alphabet in basically the same period.
Well, these are much easier to read, and
Yes.
certainly Factura is famous for its being
Disputed lands.
barely
And in
readable. No
between
wonder it disappeared so soon after it appeared. So when you have a map, it's probably more important to be able to read every word.
Mhm.
And the last the previous scroll was a more formal thing. If I
Mhm.
remember correctly, this is an official ceremony. They're choosing a successor. Yeah, so it's like the highest possible style, maybe presumed to be more archaic, even though that's ahistorical because Factura appeared later than this more
That's what I was
flowy
trying to show
style.
you because I've made a crop of this text so it would be easier to read it, but because of all the crashing stuff, I wasn't able to show this screenshot. But anyway, I wanted to add about the map and material of the map because we haven't seen many maps in this series, but in the original series in the Game of Thrones, we've seen quite a few of maps, and most of them were made on leather, including some huge leathers, which are probably, I don't know, cow leathers or something like that, which cover the
Mhm.
whole table or something. There were definitely some other maps like tapestry maps and paper maps and then all that stuff, but most of them were made on leather, and they seem to be consistent here. And this definitely looks like a piece of leather. And I'm once again I'm quite impressed by the job done by the props department because well, they do it well.
What I don't quite understand is why they haven't trimmed the leather on the left. I mean, imagine how many hours, if how many days were spent making this map, just painting it on and writing everything, and yet they took like whatever the piece of leather they had and didn't even
Well,
bother
but
to make it
then we see
rectangular.
it's an original leather.
I mean, I would say it's more like parchment than just leather, because I think a couple of images down the road we see that it kind of keeps this rolled up state to a certain degree. So it's not like really easy to let it lay flat how it would be with leather. It's more a little bit more stiff and keeps it form. So that's just my estimation. And I
Let's
mean,
see what happens here. Well, I cannot show it because it's lying flat, but still it's not really the edges still curl a bit. So yeah, I don't know.
yeah,
Maybe you're right.
I think this is supposed to be something that you take with you on the campaign, even though it's a very general sort of map that couldn't possibly be used for navigation. Still, it's probably supposed to be used by a general to plan his movements. So it's a traveling kit, and they roll it up and have it with them.
And I mean, that also would be a reason to keep the edges because, in a way, they can serve as protection. If you have more material on the edges, the important part, which is the map itself, can't be as easily damaged.
Yeah.
I mean, this is also why we have like these the white borders in on book pages, so that you can touch there, don't obscure any necessary information present on the page, or here in this case the map. I mean, he shows this beautifully by holding it on the edges. So yeah, I think like, and of course you would use the clean part to put your drawing on, and the more rigid parts on the edges, well, don't bother. At least you can have a bigger map. You can use it more.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
This
just what I would say.
this fits with what we discussed last week with Franz Uyar, who told us that when after the Second World War, people started printing cheaper books. They cut also on the margins, so the margins
Yeah, yeah, the
were
margins, right.
pretty small. So there was just no
Um, uh,
space to rub your fingers on.
by the way, on YouTube, Real LWD, who joined us from Lancaster as usual, hi, asks, did they use a type of vellum to write on, not just goat or lambskin, but dragon skin or centaur skin?
I think Centaurs is more of a Harry Potter realm or something like that. I can see Voldemort's manuscript written on a Centaur's ass or something like that.
But dragon skin, that's also quite a sacrilege in this universe, I think.
Yeah, I don't think it was ever mentioned that anything was written on dragon skin or
Or even made of dragon skin. I don't think I saw armor or anything like that.
um huh. Oh, that's interesting. I can't remember, but I wouldn't be so sure that nothing was made with dragon skin, but because, well, maybe it was. We need to dive deeper to answer that question. But,
No.
well, why not? Dragon skin vellum. So, what's next? The same console where the map was shown. We have in the right corner you can see some sort of a ledger, and this is Master of Coin, and
Hmm.
what's his name?
Lord Lyman Beesbury.
Thank you.
That's his name. I'm like, I didn't made it up. It's his name. And yeah, he's the master of coin. And well, basically in this book, he, I guess, has the records of what money was spent on whichever stuff for
Yeah.
like yeah.
we don't we
So
don't we don't see much of it, but there was another shot of the ledger that's allowed to see what's that thing on in the left part of the ledger, and you can see that it's sort of protective flap or something like that, in leather, and with maybe some decoration or something like that, but you don't see much detail of this ledger anyway. But then there is a similar ledger, or at least something that looks pretty similar at a later episode, and that's already a different Master of Coin. And here we can show you a close-up, and you can see that there are signatures there, so it's a sewn book, and it looks like a large limp binding or something like that.
And it's definitely paper.
yeah, it's definitely paper, and
Mm.
it's well, the decorations, the edges seem to be a decoration of sorts. So it doesn't seem like a proper deckled paper or deckled edges, but they were, I think, made to look more, I don't know, something used or something or handmade. But anyway, the signatures are definitely sewn to the piece of leather or something like that to the cover directly, and I think that's a step forward compared to what Littlefinger had as his ledgers in the Game of Thrones series, because over there they just used screw post binding. So like something you can see in, for example, in restaurants where they make a menu and they just make 3 or 4 holes and put screws inside, and you can fast assemble and disassemble this structure and add sheets or remove them. But here is, well, a proper book. You cannot add pages there though. But anyway, so that's that.
I mean, I could give a small historical fact on ledgers.
Yeah, sure.
Um, in the real world, ledgers were decorated with marbled edges.
Yeah.
So, and that had a reason because that was there so that you couldn't take out any page,
Okay.
because then the marbled pattern
Will
would
break.
be interrupted, would break. So it would was kind of prevention of making up stuff, erasing stuff. So the book had to be in order, and you could see whether it was in order or not. And you can't really remake the pattern, the marbled pattern, for just a single page or 2 pages to fit perfectly.
Interesting.
So it
Yeah,
was a safety measurement.
I saw multiple times that ledgers had marbled edges, but never even guessed what was the reason. Thank you.
And we did talk about real life Spanish ledgers and books like that and their representation in art, especially in paintings by Hans Holbein with Rita Udina.
Yeah.
So and she shared lots of examples from 15th and 16th century mostly. So if you're interested, you can go and listen to that. I'll post a link in the comments.
Okay. And next we have this romantic scene, romantic, not romantic, but well, positioned quite nicely with the manuscript. uh, and it seems once again that they worked quite a lot in on making this prop, because it definitely it shows up several times during the series, and
Hmm.
it definitely seems that there are at least several sections of this manuscript which are filled with texts and some decoration. So nice work again. And then it's Pavel, you wanted to comment something on that part of the manuscript.
Well, when you look at this, this is clearly an enlarged initial, a
Hmm.
historiated initial. I think I couldn't find the exact one that they based this on, but I'm pretty sure that in the original it would be what 4 times smaller than this, at the, at least,
Yeah, the placement of the
and
text kind of.
yeah, and also how you could never find something like that in a real book. I mean, an initial this big and 5 to 6 letters around it. That's pretty peculiar. And in terms of date, to me at least, it reminds of late Attonian manuscripts. So, say 10th century, 11th
Hmm.
century, but certainly not the binding. and the image on the left is something like uh, they had those schemes diagrams of the world, how it is composed of several spheres, one inside the other. There's fire, there's water, then there's air, but that looks a bit later and probably French and not German. So overall, I do like what they made, but it doesn't make any sense. That's what I wanted to say.
Well, it doesn't make any sense in our world. In theirs. Yeah.
And she kept reading this page for like what, a minute, all of
Well,
5 words.
maybe she was just deciphering all the spikes of the multi-spiked star on the left page or something. Yeah, and with the binding, we can see that it's a hollow spine binding, and but other than that, there is a lot of metal elements on both covers, which are probably a bit earlier if you compare to objects from our history. So, well, it's an interesting mix of I guess usability and visual interestingness of this of this book for viewers.
And what
Uh,
about the writing? What about the writing? What Friedrich, what do you think about the letter forms?
do we have
If we
yeah, here? Yeah, that's the same page, and that's the same
Mhm.
writing.
so well, yeah, it's basically I would say it's similar to Fraktur. It's not quite there, so I would say it's more like the a little bit more traditional black letter style. I only know the German word for textura, which is a Latin word, but that's how we call them in German. And it's like so it's like an in between. I mean, of course, you had in history you had a vast variety of monks as writers, and with each one of them, the style changed a little bit. And from one of those styles, or like I think a mix of two, these not pure Gothic styles of writing were called bastarda. And from two of those, I think the Bohemian and the Austrian or so, the writing style of Fraktur was developed. So you can actually look that up and see how one form or one style influenced the next one. It's just an evolution. And this one, it's like an in between because it's like I think a little bit too light to be pure, proper dark Gothic style, and yeah,
Yeah, the spaces between letters are too big. I think it's too
yeah,
readable for the style. But what I also noted, which is nice, they have some digraphs. At least they try to write when F is followed by another letter, say in the word first, or FI, or in the word fleet,
mm,
more to the top. You can see that F and L go closer, and F and I, the dot from the I connects to the F. How even in the modern day digital fonts, you often have separate ligatures for F and
mm.
I, F and F, F and L. So something like that. So some attention was certainly put into it.
And here we can see that it's definitely decorated intentional because the first word, the second line, the first word is Nimeria's fleet, so it's N, as we can see from here. But yeah, it was inspired by something, but they created it, I think, definitely for this story because it also plays for this story because there is some
Hmm.
sea and ship motifs there and well, burning ships or something like that.
And they
So,
also mention it in their conversation in
yeah,
this part of the story. Yeah, and what I just noticed, I didn't saw it on my end at first. What they also seem to have done is like you can see a small line on the outer edge of the text. So they kind of like drawn in a small or
yeah,
thin line for the positioning,
yeah,
which is a great detail because that's how monks did it. Like they used like something like a silver pen, which was basically like a nowadays pencil in the usage, and they outlined the page for writing. So in a way, they did the same here, which is a nice detail. I think it's a really a pity that you have like this uneven edge on the side. It's
yeah.
like that's not how, and like also like one word at a time. It's like,
Well, well,
but I guess it's because they wanted to show this initial.
yeah, yeah. They definitely wanted to this initial to be seen on wider shots, and they had to, you know, to choose either it will be too small and not seen very well, or well, in some shots we'll see that the right edge of the text isn't even, and well, whatever.
Yeah.
I wanted to show a couple of other shots when the this I don't remember the that's the future queen on the left, right? The second
Yes.
wife of the king, and when she's spoilers, sorry, well, when she's browsing through the book, you can see that there are at least several pages written and decorated in there. So that's once again nice work. I don't think they filled the whole book with something, but anyway. And
Well,
there
or
is
maybe they did, but they just like have like maybe two sections designed and
yeah,
then they just repeated.
maybe
So that
that's
like if something like happens that, for example, in one shot you see another spread, then it can be something that just reappears and it
yeah.
doesn't really get
Yeah, yeah,
noticed.
yeah. Maybe we need to find somebody who worked on something like that and ask them a lot of questions because it's just
Tell us
That's another thing.
everything.
I looked through the credits,
yeah,
and you just can't tell who did what.
yeah,
There is a props department, but
and that's
who's
it.
responsible for what? Yeah.
Mm.
And here is the same book, but seen from the front cover and the spine. So yeah, you can see these metal elements, protective decorative elements over here, and I also included some still shots
And
from
also, no, I
and
just noticed
yeah,
the same decorative element on the cover and in the book, the
yeah,
same sun
yeah,
emblem. Yeah.
yeah.
Mm.
And then a sacrilegious moment when yeah, a page is torn from the book. That same page with the large decorated initial, and then there's Septus would be angry. They will name names and I don't know, say words. And then there is another scene with same book, and I edited it just because there is some more text in, and it, does it seem that it's a different script there?
Let me have a close look.
I have it like that turned on the side. It's better.
No.
No, I think it's the same style.
Yeah,
Just and I mean on one of the earlier shots, where you had the book also in small, you also could see like two blue initials,
yeah.
like an S or something. So that's also in line. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
there starts a new sentence or something like that. I mean, historically speaking, we don't always had the same the same way of structuring text. We used different ways. Like, I mean, even at a certain point, writing was done without separation of words. So you just had like a long string of text. And then eventually some monks came up with the idea, hey, maybe let's separate the words so you can read them more easily. And then to structure the text, like these colorful initials were introduced. So the actual writer or the first writer would write the text without those initials. And then the so-called rubricator from rubric from red, because usually the markings were done in red,
Mm-hmm.
added those and also painted the initials.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Okay.
that's basically in line.
And also, as we see in this shot, there are in many scenes there are books just thrown around the
Mm,
locations. So here's something. It's probably two books and with gilded edges, by the way, which is something I'd say it's something unusual for the world of Game of Thrones, because we didn't
mm.
see that much in the previous. In the original series and in this series as well. But anyway, at least all the occasions we see just some random books on the shelves or something like that. They seem to be in place. I mean, from the point of view of style and decoration, because I remember pretty well that when I was preparing screenshots for the original series, for the series of posts dedicated to the all bookish objects of the original series of Game of Thrones. I At some moment I found a book, something about England in Tyrion's room, standing on a shelf. So they just took a nicely decorated book and placed it there because nobody would see it anyway. But I was going shot by shot and found it. But yeah. And another view of the same tome from the spine, and I just like uh, these small details on the um, raised bands, the uh,
Mm.
the lines. How do you call it?
Ridges?
The ridges, yeah. The small ridges on the bands. I mean the one that go vertically along the
Yeah.
spine. So yeah, that's a nice detail. Also, some blind tooling near the head of the book, and all in all,
And also on top and on the bottom of each of the raised bands, it's also like blind tooling.
yeah, 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 yeah.
No end bands so far, though. So, like,
Mm.
Let us check what can we see here.
Well, a slight one.
Yeah, there is an end band, but I think it's a fake
glued
end band.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, it looks nice. So what's next? We can see here a letter for a raven being sealed and by the hand. I don't remember the name of the hand of the king, but anyway, he's written a letter and he's sealing it with wax, and he's doing it properly this time, because at least a couple of times in the Game of Thrones series, they placed wax seals on top of the outer cover or something like that, and you were able to sort of just take out the inside letter without even ruining the wax seal. But here he's sealing the one end of the paper to the paper itself, and well, that's you cannot open this scroll without ruining the wax seal. So they are getting better with that. No seal on the no he didn't stamp any sigil on the wax in this scene anyway. So I don't know why they usually do it in this series. And here is a close-up, just a sheet of paper. And then a bit
And
later,
he's wearing a ring that would work just fine for the purpose.
yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. And I was like, well, it's not too far of a distance, to reach out and to make an impression. And then he's just taking another sheet of paper, and you can see this pre-cut sheets of paper, because I don't think we've seen many of them in the original series. You see them just already as written scrolls that the person takes away from the raven's food or something like that, and then they open them and read them. But here is a sheet of paper that will be used and rolled. And by the way, you should keep in mind the grain direction when you're making objects like this. So the grain should be the paper should be short grained for these scrolls, because otherwise it can break when you roll it, or it will try to to open up, because it will spring, because the paper grain will act as a prужина, as a spring. Yeah, as a spring. Sorry. And that's what I thought when I saw this strangely elongated piece of paper, sheet of paper. Well, it's obvious the reasons for this shape, but you definitely should mind the grain direction for objects like this. Moving forward, what's next? Yeah, another book, but we don't see much of it, because she just keeps it in her hands, and well, that's it. But some decorations there.
Does it look damaged?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, the spine
in the middle and on the top.
and on the top. Yeah, it was used a lot.
It is supposed to be an old book of legends, tales, something like that. So
but it's
a well-read
book. But anyway, yeah.
I mean, I think it's a great detail. So that not everything looks like newly made. So
although most of the things we see in this series look mint condition. I mean, I know it's the capital, but still, don't they use their books?
Yeah, but where are thumbprints on these books of fairy tales or something like that, a bit about Nymeria or somebody else? There should be some marks on the margins. Next, what's next? Is it? Yeah.
Oh no.
Maybe it crashed again. No.
Oh.
So yeah, nothing special here. I mean, we can't see much of a detail, but yeah, just a lot of bookish objects, books.
I like
scrolls.
the burnt manuscript in the middle.
Yeah, yeah, a burnt manuscript in the middle. It's a nice one. Yeah, letters, all that stuff, just all over the place, and I guess the king used at least some of them as an inspiration for the reconstruction of this Valyria landscape, this model of Valyria, but. What are the other books we don't really know? And
well, I think what he says, and I guess what these books are for. I mean, maybe some of it is like correspondence or so. So like official duties, and he just like tosses them aside and like just lays them somewhere on this model. And I mean, but he says like he reads through these old histories and takes up the details, and then he gives those to the actual model workers who make this. So he designs the plans according to which the like craftsmen make this model, and like maybe he adds some details. Or I think in during the show he gets more involved into making some of the stuff himself. you seem like tinkering on some of the parts of the models at later points in the show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then it goes forgotten at some moments a bit later at the end of the series, and everything is covered with
Didn't saw the
cobwebs.
cobwebs. That's
Yeah.
like again, like the show is so dark, you just overlooked some details. If you, I mean, of course, I also looked for books, so I guess I just missed this detail that
Yeah.
that it's
and
totally covered in cobwebs.
and then returning to Pavel's comments that most of the books look really new here. Well, here they at least try to make an impression that they've been staying there for a long time in this place. These books. So, yeah, we jump just a bit forward because it's the same scene, and I decided to join together. Um, things that happened in the same scenes but in different times. But anyway, yeah, same disarray but slightly forgotten books. um, and here is something. It's just a letter or some directions, and that's one of the things that um, in the original series they often did as I mentioned before. They So here is this here is a scroll which is tied by a rope, and in the original series they were often just putting some wax on the rope, and that's it. So
Mhm.
it's sealed, and then you can even in the series they show it like that sometimes, that a person takes this seal placed on the ropes with the ropes, moves it away from the scroll, unrolls the scroll and reads the scroll. So
I
it's
think
just
there might be a reason. I think I just came up with a reason why they did that.
yeah.
It's just like if you have to reshoot a scene,
Yeah. Yeah.
they have to do it
Yeah.
again. You can't like,
You don't want to break
okay,
it.
let's re-prepare the prop.
Yeah, probably,
That,
maybe.
that
but
might just be the reason.
but from the point of view of technology of wax sealing, that's
Yeah,
just absolute madness. That's just
yeah.
insane. How can you? The sacrilege. Yeah, it's fine. So Real LWD writes that I see there are carved tables made of wood. Is it not a small step to carving letters for letterpress printing? Yeah, that's true.
No,
And
it's not.
and so a couple of millennia or what between the 2 points. But yeah, maybe in the direction, but they didn't make the leap.
Certainly, woodblock printing is very close to carving furniture. If you can carve an ornament, surely you can carve some letters. And there were before Gutenberg some books and certainly leaflets where text was wholly carved, fully carved. But they don't seem to have it here, and we know some experiments in that direction happened all over the world. Wherever there is carving, there is printing from carved surface. But for consistency, not here.
But I think that there was a stamp used in the first scroll that we saw.
Mhm.
We had the text of like this Lord Seer symbol name Viserys of House Targaryen, etc. So the scroll in the first shot, and on the side you have like a small
Yeah.
circle which looks like a chain.
Let's try to return back.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I just because we now like this looks like a chain, and I think this should. I guess this would be a stamp
Yeah, maybe.
for like okay, that's the seal or the symbol a certain official, maybe the king or maybe the right hand of the king, because you see like this the right hand later, he has um, um, a necklace which is like a small chain, and also like the maesters in the
Yeah,
show also have like these big chains around their neck.
yeah, yeah.
So maybe that's like an official stamp, and it has to be a stamp in a way so that it can't be copied by someone else. And maybe like you would have certain details in it, so that you just can't make a second one of those. Or I mean, if you draw it, then like okay, everyone could have written this. And I mean, this is an official document, so it needs some um, details to make it copy proof, basically.
Well, if they have rings that they can stamp on wax seals or something like that, they can probably make other sorts of stamps as well. That's definitely a reasonable thing to say. So where we are? Yeah, here is this letter, and
Hmm.
was it High Valyrian or something? I
Yeah,
Do you
High
have something to
Valyrian.
add here, Friedrich?
Uh, it looks a little bit runic. I guess we return to that word later, but in a different context. Yeah, it's I would say like basically a runic writing system. Um, some people online wrote a translation for this. It's basically just I don't know if she reads it out loud here, but it's like take these clothes and follow the marking and meet me or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't have it on top of my head, but
yeah,
yeah, it's a small instruction and um, an example of High Valyrian, which we also can see on this
yeah,
dagger.
yeah.
And this is, I mean, it's, I don't know if it has a purpose really within the story here. I think it gives the wearer some legitimacy because the text on the dagger is the prophecy of the prince who was promised or so, which plays a bigger role within Game of Thrones.
Hmm. Somehow I have two similar images here, but anyway, we don't have any other images with the dagger anyway. But yeah, let's move on. Just some more objects, some more
Hmm.
scrolls. Can you see them? Yeah, just more props. And we discussed scrolls and scroll top heads, top parts of the scrolls,
Crowns.
Hmm.
quite crowns, scroll crowns, quite a lot during our live stream dedicated to the Rings of Power series. And well, if you're interested, you can watch it there. And I think I also posted a short video on YouTube dedicated to that, so you can find it there. But well, here once again, scrolls with crowns. So
And also here we can see the axis, the spool, I think it's called. And somehow the one on the right seems to be just falling out of the scroll. Just saying.
Hmm.
well, he was in a hurry. Um, what's
Mob
next? Yeah,
Oh,
the
we are getting
library.
to the library
The
now.
library.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah.
The one that looks exactly like the library of Florentine ambassadors from the 16th century, I have to say, but a very nice one. Maybe indeed bound by one or two people. Uh, Maybe the books are earlier, but bindings are all of the same period.
So
Maybe.
yeah, that's Daemon Targaryen in his library, and it seems that he has spent a lot of money on redesigning the books or rebinding the books for his
Mm.
library to follow the single style, like it was like many people did in the 19th century or something like that, and nowadays as well. Some people do that.
Oh,
But
actually in Tudor times, palace libraries were all bound in one style. All the books we have from the time of Elizabeth I in the original bindings are the same. All the books from the time of her father are all in the same style, from the same cloth with the same symbols. And we have a recollection of Henry the Eighth's first wife, Catherine of Aragon, how she was impressed by her husband to be showing off his library all decked out in the same style. So it was clearly showmanship aspect of it.
And I mean that wasn't really unusual later, especially during times when books, when they were sold, weren't already bound. So people would buy the books as a basically loose stitch binding with maybe like a paper cover, and would bring them to a bookbinder to have them rebound. And usually they decided for a certain style, like for example, marbled paper or stuff like that, or any form of decorative paper, or leather or parchment. And so they would have a library in almost only one style. So that's, I guess, not too uncommon in different uh, time periods. What I thought about this library, it's too tidy. It's like he has some books lying around that
yeah,
were actually used, but the shelves are just completely decked out. Like you have almost no room to put the books away that are outside of the shelf. So there was
that's
kind
true.
of like,
And
all right.
another thing I noticed. Don't you think? Could you go a bit back where we see them a bit closer, the books themselves? Or was it a bit later,
Yeah, a
where
bit
we can
later.
see a
Yeah.
close up of
Yeah.
this one? Don't you think some of the raised bands are too much, like this
Yeah, yeah,
one
yeah, yeah,
or
yeah.
this one?
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Raised bands are prominent here. This is,
Yeah.
yeah,
They are like cut out of wood. I don't know.
draconian bands. Yeah.
Again,
Mm,
like with this oversized initial, they are meant to be seen.
Yeah.
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 They're overemphasized.
Brutalist bookbinding.
I was also intrigued if at least some of these books are real books, or all of
Mm,
them are, just wooden blocks, or I don't know, cardboard pieces with something on the backside to resemble a book spine or something like that, or if even they are, put in blocks of 4 or 5 books like that. So for example, these 4 books that are lying on side, that can be a single block that is just designed to look like 4 books.
And
uh,
also this one just atop his hand looks like you could pull it out and there would be a bottle of gin behind it.
or in it. Yeah. Yeah, 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 that's true.
yeah, I mean, I was wondering when I saw this because like I also thought like, okay, these bands are like a bit too much. But if it's Damon's library, maybe it's also supposed to characterize him a little bit. He's like this
he's
bold
he's a bit too much.
character. He's no, I mean, he is a bold character. He does questionable actions like letting his books bound in this style. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think they fit his character somehow. So maybe that's. I mean, I'm surprised sometimes how much thought is being put into these props, and it's nice to hear that. I mean, later in Rings of Power, I will come back to this thing with the thought putting into like
In
basically minute details. And maybe that's also the case here, that they thought like, okay, which style of books would be good for this character.
In this scene, by the way, I was also impressed by how his dress, his kaftan, corresponds well to this piece of
Hmm.
furniture over there. So yeah, maybe if everything should be fitting together. So
I
maybe you're
also
right.
wonder when he decides to change the color of his clothes, does he rebind all of his library too? It's all very, very color coordinated, very anal of him.
We want to
Countries,
add a bit red. Just dip everything in blood. So next, and here it's a bit later in the series. We move to Dragonstone, and there are a couple of scenes in this. I I. I don't think it's a council room or something like that. The room with
Hmm.
the thing in the middle is called, as far as I understand, the painted table. But yeah, in the series it's a carved table, and we've seen it before in the original Game of Thrones series, and here it also plays some role because, well, obviously it's a map of Westeros and people gather around it, and well, but sometimes they use it just as a table, like it is here, placing some objects and some books on it, and yeah, there is also some probably a manuscript of stories, myth, or fairy tales over there. Um, we don't know for sure. We see this book only from afar, and there is some castle there.
cityscape, yeah,
Yeah, some cityscape.
and some sea, some sky. So it's definitely a city, not a castle. I think it's like an island thing.
Yeah. Well, but unfortunately not much. We can see some cover decoration there, and this cover decoration is definitely out of style for everything that we can see.
Yeah.
This decorated border on the outer edge of the cover. It's just a couple of hundred years later in our world, and in the world of Westeros, it's like several thousand years later, I guess. As fast as their technology progress goes. Um, Next, yeah, another Raven scroll, Raven roll. Nothing to we can't really read what's written there. We can see the script, and here's I guess for some people it may be a spoiler because in the original series the painted table didn't light up like that. So
Hmm.
when I saw it, and I didn't see these last episodes yet. So when I and Friedrich provided me with timestamps so that I can make the screenshots and all that stuff. And when I switched to this moment, I was like, wow, that's a spoiler for me. Thank you very much.
What I just noticed is I didn't pay attention to it when I oh, you turned it right. Nice. um so what I just noticed is that the writing style here is basically more in line with the like with Latin style,
Yeah.
like
Mm.
just serif fonts. I mean, it's still a little bit more historic style. I don't know the proper name for it off the top of my head, but it's like you have like more like these straight lines, not like this handwritten style. I mean, of course, it is carved, but you also can carve like Fraktur or Gothic style letters into wood.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's like it's a totally different style from anything we saw before.
Mm-hmm. Do
Um,
they
it just
explain it in the series? How is it light up?
I don't know. I also skipped just through this episode. I didn't come around to watching this one.
Okay.
So I don't know. I was also surprised, like, why does it glow?
We'll
So
have to
yeah.
watch it.
We'll have to watch it eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a nice surprise, and we are getting closer to the end. Or is it the end?
It is the end. This
Yeah,
is
the
the
end.
last
That's
shot
it.
that I sent you. One thing that I wanted to mention, and I'm not too familiar with the whole Game of Thrones world building, but what sometimes happens, because we are talking about, or we're talking about, like how different styles in this show didn't seem to appear in order as we would expect it from our world.
Yeah.
And what happens in some shows, in some fantasy settings, is that there's this thought of cultural decline. So where we perceive history as like culture developing further and further and improving on itself, in these types of shows, sometimes you have the idea of cultural decline. So within Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon, people often talk about old Valyria, the home or the former home of the Targaryens, for example. I think like a continent or a country that is like some sort of Atlantis that got lost in time. And the aim is to basically rebuild old Valyria in Westeros. So, in a sense, you can argue maybe some of the books would be still from old Valyria, but due to the decline of culture, you come from a more like Renaissance style into a more like brutish or plain or rough medieval style. So it's more like a decline in this sense. That that would be something that I could imagine could play a role here.
Yeah. That's an
And it's
interesting
also
thought.
yeah, and it's also how our medieval ancestors thought about it.
Mm.
They always thought about the golden age of before, and indeed there was a golden age. It's just that we don't have much of it left, and they did. Say in Carolingian times, when they made their rather well magnificent but still rather simple manuscripts, they could look at originals from the Roman Empire. They could see the writing, and they tried to emulate it, but they couldn't quite do it. So for them, it certainly was trying to catch up with the former glory. So yeah.
Yeah, I think there's also I think it's from the Bible, this or the Old Testament, this motive of a statue with a golden head, a silver body,
And bronze legs, yeah.
yeah, and then like feed iron mixed with clay or so. And this was also like a representation of how history is in sort of decline, and the feed that's like basically the present, and it's so brittle, and it will just basically destroy everything that was before because the statue will fall down eventually. And I think so this idea of culture actually declining is far older and maybe over time way more present, at least in the Western culture, than our idea of steady progress. So we are the ones with the weird ideas, basically, historically speaking.
Good for us.
Yeah.
Um, so, no surprises here. We talked about the House of the Dragon a bit longer than we planned.
Yeah.
So,
I do you think we have time for anything else?
can we just go through the remaining things of the bookish objects of the Rings of Power in 10 minutes and just forget about it forever, or should we keep it for the next time?
I think we could. I mean, if we want to talk about the letter later, the Tolkien letter,
Yeah.
then
Well,
we
we could do it as a separate, not maybe full issue, but as a part of a separate episode, because it would make sense to talk about those things combined.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do that.
all right.
Let's do it
Okay.
separately. So that's almost it for today. Then I just
All of a
wanted
sudden.
to use Friedrich as a uh, printmaking related person and to ask a question. And I just I was asked to make this version of so I have these gauges that can be
Mhm.
used for offsetting.
Sorry, could you please stop sharing your
Yeah,
screen?
because your
You don't like my
You're
screen?
too
gauges
small
are
to see.
You don't like my screen? That's an amazing map of Westeros. Why don't you like it?
We would like more of you.
were you asked by Schmidt?
So yeah, I was asked by a customer to make a flexible version of the gauge because
Mhm.
I'm not sure if this person is a printer, but I understood that the reason for that is uh, to uh, to set up spaces between curved objects on a printing surface. So and I've made these spacers of I don't know 2 and 3 millimeter thickness that can be bent in different ways.
Yeah.
So does it make any sense in your opinion?
Well, I think what this person wants to achieve is like in letterpress letters, so
Yeah.
like lead letters, to set them like in circles or
Yeah, maybe
curvy
that.
ways.
Or sometimes there are printing blocks that are curved in some ways, so non-standard blocks, and maybe to offset them in some ways. And
Well, what I would say is that you give me a second.
And you imagine lots of those put inside, and how will they
I
be
don't know.
held
Yeah,
in
because
place?
I tried to print different thicknesses and different heights, and
Height.
obviously it becomes more rigid with the thicker you go and the higher you go. And for
So,
example, the 5 millimeter gauge, it wouldn't flex almost at all. Yeah,
what I wanted to say is that lead letters have a
yeah,
certain height.
yeah,
So, these should be at least not the same height. They are like separators for these
yeah.
letters, and they should have, I would say, the same height
Okay.
as. I mean, I don't know how big did you make this? How broad
So
is it?
this one is 10 millimeter high and 20 millimeter long, and it is what's I think 2 millimeters thick. Yeah, it's 2 millimeter thick. But it is still pretty flexible. But if I go to 3 millimeters, it becomes more rigid, so it it doesn't
Mm.
flex as well. So there should be some balance between the height of this gauge, because I can go higher, but it becomes less and less flexible with each millimeter of height. And
So,
yeah, so it's an interesting experiment,
um,
but I want to find somebody who would test them. And the other question is, do they have to be long or short? What's the obviously, the person who sent me the initial request may be of some help, but they didn't answer me yet, and I'll send them another
Mm.
message. Maybe I'll get some replies then, but we'll see. So, but that's something experimental from the past days.
So what I would say is the broadness of it, or its height.
Yeah,
Um, that should be like around 2 centimeters,
2 centimeters. Okay.
because yeah, because otherwise the letters could I mean, you would have pressure from different sides,
Yeah, and they will
and if
skew.
they will skew or they will just fall over, so they should be high enough to cover more than 2/3
Mm-hmm.
of the letter in height, um, and small enough not to be printed as well. And that would be like, I mean, a lead letter is about 2 centimeters and like, or maybe 2.3 centimeters high. There's a standard for that. And these separators are a bit shorter always.
Mm-hmm.
And it should basically, I mean, basically it would be best for you to, in my opinion, to switch for this one to typographic measurements,
Mm-hmm.
which are always like, I mean, they're a little bit
Oh,
different.
you mean choose the thickness, not in millimeters, but
in
uh,
points.
points
In
or
points,
something.
yeah.
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 Okay. That's. Thank you very much. That's smart.
That's what I would suggest. So that it just is, yeah, well, if it's for letterpress typesetting, then it should follow the measurements.
Mm-hmm.
And also the length, you have a measurement which is called, I think one is called Cicero,
Mm-hmm.
which is 12 points, and another one is called concordance or so. I don't know. I have to look it up, but which is like for Cicero basically. So it's a 48 points,
Mm-hmm.
and then a bunch of those make up these line separators that you put in between of lines, so that you have just some space between the lines of set text. And you could make those bent ones in these measurements, but I would say the larger ones, um, because otherwise, or like at line length, I can look those up and send you an email. But also, I guess you would just have to ask around a little bit for some people how they would intend to using it,
Yeah.
because if you have a, do I have something bendy right now? um I just have this one and it's not too bendy. um Something transparent. I just have, I mean,
It's
my
too bend. It's too bendy. Let's face it, Stepan. It's too much. It won't hold anything.
no, I mean the idea of this is that you usually you have to work around really hard to make curved text in with lead letters. So such a little asset would be great, especially because the in a handset text, the whole page has to be filled in with stuff,
Yeah.
like with non-printing stuff.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
fill in the
Yeah.
whole page, otherwise just
It will fall apart.
gets, it will fall apart. And if you want to have a curved text, there are some workarounds, like people working with like thin cardboard or so.
Mm-hmm.
But having something like this, like something bandy like this, which has the right height and the right thickness, and which is also still stable enough not to be crunched by the pressure and hold everything in place. I think this would be a great asset to have, but I think it should be more broad than the common page, because like it has to fill out more than the broadness of the printed page to be curved and to be still held in place. So I think, I mean, what one could try is to imagine how much would I want to print and then how long these should be. Another way that, I mean, what eventually people would do is like cut them to size.
Yeah, sure. You can cut it really easily. That's true.
So so basically just have like 30 centimeters in length, and then people could cut them into size.
Yeah, maybe that's a good option. Okay. I'll experiment a bit more after the book binding fair.
Yeah.
No
Yeah, and
more time for anything before that. And you are going to a printing fair.
To a book fair.
Book fair.
Or book and printing, like a mixture, also book arts. Yeah, also on the weekend. I will be on my way tomorrow, and it will take place from already tomorrow? I don't know, or from Friday? I'm not too sure. At least Friday. I think tomorrow we'll be setting up the whole thing, and then Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and on Monday I'll be coming back.
Okay.
Yeah, and I can look on writing a small report and making some videos.
So yeah, if you find anything interesting there, I hope so.
My own
Then
stuff.
yeah. Then maybe we'll be able to discuss it on one of the future live streams. I think we have 30th of November free, at least for now, and maybe we can finalize our talk about the Rings of Power and discuss this this Tolkien's letter and your experience at the fair.
Let's do that.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you everyone who stayed with us. There were quite a few people on YouTube today, so much more than average, and many more than we had on Facebook today. So that's something that's interesting. And please check all the links in the description. I don't know, subscribe, share our videos, like, ring the bell, go to our Patreon account and check the support tiers, all that stuff. Our Discord channel server is working, and you can ask questions there. We have a TikTok now, TikTok account, and some nice videos there. So yeah, check everything, subscribe to our accounts, and see you next week. Thank you for being with us, and we'll stay here for a minute longer while the stream drops everywhere. And